Aloha! Welcome to Gruber Power Hour. I'm Erica, and this is Wyatt.
I'm Wyatt.
Thanks for coming, Wyatt.
No problem. I'm a new face on here, but
Yeah.
I'm an account manager that's been working here for a year and a half now,
Uh-huh.
primarily on government bids,
Yeah.
which is annoying and complicated. So that's what we're going to talk about today, right?
Yeah. We're going to talk about annoyingly complicated processes that we still do and love.
Yay!
But ultimately, the reason I brought Wyatt on is because that, like he said, that's the primary of what he's doing. That's the primary of his functionality. He works with a lot of government entities, state of, county of, city of, and what he's able to procure and see in these bids. Most of us are going, what the heck's that even mean? So we're going to go through today, hopefully within that half hour, or maybe even an hour, depending on how long we get into this, and talk about like the announcement of the bid. We'll start there. So the announcement comes out, it's typically online.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much at this point, I think it's always online. Like, there's still every once in a while I'll run into a county that does things real old school, and they'll just post like a snippet from the newspaper that's like, come to the county hall at this time to get a paper copy of the bidding info.
Right.
Like, like no joke. And I'm like,
I'm in Arizona. You want me to fly to New York to go get a bid? Okay, I guess so.
But yeah, it starts like all of them work a little bit differently, depending on the entity. Federal government stuff almost always will go on sam.gov. So you can go check that out right now if you want. You got an internet connection.
Do you have to pay to bid on there?
No. Sam.gov is totally free. It's like a federal like it's where they put primarily like anything that's to do with like the military, anything official like that will go there. Whereas cities and like local like county stuff, they'll have their own website or use a website service. Well, they'll post the information about like, hey, here's what we're looking for. And that's basically what I look for all day. Well, not all day, but like it's a big part of what I do.
Part of your day.
It's a good chunk of my day. I was actually, before we came out here, I have somewhere of upwards 130 different websites that I track on a monthly basis. So
that's completely normal.
And that is pretty, after I saw that, I was like, that's actually feels low.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that funny? And you're skimming it, right? So there's obviously keywords that we're looking for. In our industry, we're looking for uninterruptible power supplies, critical power.
Even just like batteries, I'll search these kinds of terms to have them come up. And it really like it feels like a scavenger hunt a lot of the time.
I feel the same way.
It's just like it feels like I'm just shooting darts, and I'm just like, hey, maybe county like Morris County has something for us. Any UPS? Nope. Okay, moving on.
Right. So you're like just going
one after another, because like they can post these at like any time, and there's like services that you can get. We have what is it called? Not BidNet Direct. It's something. We have a service that we pay for. There's a couple of them that are out there. Well, they'll try to notify you of bids related to your industry that come out just like across the board, like from the internet. And that's actually been super, super handy because it'll just like, hey, here's the latest stuff posted from this obscure county website that you've never even heard of this county.
Right. Like here's a notification based on what I like.
Yeah. And it'll be like, it had these keywords show up that says that this might be a good one. And like, you know, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but it's like
it's Facebook. You might know this person.
Yeah. That kind of thing. But even then, after you get past that point, like, because that's just finding basically the title.
Right.
And then after that, there's so much.
Then you got to go through the actual RFP itself.
Yes.
Which is typically, how many pages would you say on average it is? Like 200?
I like the normal end is about 80.
Oh my God.
It'll be like 80 pages. The first like 10 of so will literally like, because it's a contract, so it's all in legalese. It'll just be defining terms. So like a whole page that's just like, this is the data center, and here's all the info on it. Every time we refer to the data center, come back here to know what the data center like. And there's so many pages that are just that. So you got to go through all of that and then find where the actual scope of work is to determine if it's even something that we can do. And then even after that, there's even more weird bureaucratic red tape. Like Because like I said, these
Go on, let's talk about that. That's the fun part. This is where we're going with it. So we've got convoluted is realistically what we're looking at.
Complete legalese. Like, and just like we said, there'll be like an 80 to 200 page document, and there'll be like one little line in there that's just completely blows it out of the water. And you've wasted all your time.
You've got all of this, you're going strong, and then all of a sudden you read that one line. You're like,
we're going to require a bid bond for that. And it's like, shucks, dang it. I can't. Like, and I'll have spent like the last hour making new records, figuring stuff out. And then I'm just like, oh, man.
Oh, darn it. Well, see, here's what I love is when, we have an Instagram follower saying, hi, hello.
Oh, hello.
Darafi. I hope I'm saying
what kind of products or services do you bid? Pretty much any of the ones that we do normally. So like what I like to look out for the most is maintenance agreements, because those are super easy for us to do. Like I can get that quote out and it's super simple, but like UPS installs, replacements, batteries, really any parts, anything along that line. And like like anything.
I think you pretty much cut it all.
Yeah, like what else do we do? Anything
as far as we do communications bidding as well. So like category cabling, copper cabling. We even have a fiber side of things. So that's the Gruber. Gruber companies as a whole has an entire array. We've even got the electric vehicle side of it. So they're capable of doing their bids for repairs, parts, buying, and selling too.
And what like really makes this different as opposed to like the traditional selling like you may be used to with like an account manager is that legally these entities have to post these publicly for everybody to see. And they're looking to get responses from as many sources as they can, really, to try and find the best price for what they're trying to get done. So a lot of the time, like if an Air Force base is needing UPS maintenance, that was actually like the last thing I was looking at before there. They may have somebody in mind that they want to do that service, but they have to post it online.
So this is the fun part about today. And this is what we're discussing. I feel like to be the one thing, if we can take away anything today, we're going to understand. You got to choose your words wisely. We need to understand that there are wording in there that is specifically, they know who they want. They know what they want. And then they put the verbiage in there that is proprietary. And when they put that proprietary in there,
then like it pretty much just eliminates us. Like I was
reading.
No, you're fine. I saw that and I was like, hey, I got you. So like I'll be looking at a bid and they want to do like a battery change, but then the verbiage that they'll put in there is like must be an Eaton factory certified technician to do it. And that's the only place that they mention that kind of thing.
They're the only ones that can do it.
Yeah, they're saying like we'll only accept that
because they have to.
Yeah.
But ultimately they already know who
they know who they want. And the thing is technically we could, but it would mean subcontracting Eaton themselves to do the labor, which just turns us into the middleman, and then the price ends up being inflated because we have to be the middleman.
Versus going to the OEM direct.
And to get to a decent enough price that I think that they're even going to consider it, I'm already having to cut it down so much that there's almost no money to be made. So it basically eliminates
it. Almost doesn't feel like worth the efforts at certain points.
When you're in like the small business position and I see the Eaton certified thing, it's like, and the thing that's frustrating too is that we are Eaton certified. Like we're partners with them.
And we have our technicians.
And we have our technicians, and they work on these units all the time, and they're all very qualified. But that specific verbiage of being like, well, they have to have worked in an Eaton factory. Like, we don't have that guy. Only Eaton does.
Yeah. So the power industry itself is not as complicating as, even I made it to be at one point. So when you are looking over the specifications and you're looking at the information and you're understanding, obviously we here at Gruber understand what Gruber does. But what would you say as they're asking, oh, I'm good, Saro Jadav. I'm sorry, I suck at this. I'm overcomplicating the name is what I'm doing. And then please tell us something about power factors.
Power factors.
Ooh.
I might need clarification on that because if that's a technical question, That might be for Elvis.
That's Elvis and Pete Gruber for sure.
I,
No, not that we're not able to come up with information regarding power supplies. I mean, us as account managers, and
Yeah.
we are able to understand up to a certain point. That's why we hire the field techs and the field technician or field engineers.
Yeah, well, like it's like my position. I've always felt like is like the facilitator of it. Like part of why I started working specifically in government bit stuff is I have an, and this is gonna sound weird, I like paperwork.
That does sound very weird.
I know, but like I have an aptitude for reading through these documents and being able to pick up on those kinds of important information. And it was actually Janie in my early days when I started working here who picked up on that.
Right. She's
And
so good at the
she's really good
talent
at
aspect,
figuring out kind of what each individual is good at. She noticed that immediately and was just like, let's get you working with like our government folk and like talking to Rita and get you start looking for the government bids. And it's just worked out from there. Like you know, when I was first like kind of just prospecting before I was officially like an account manager, I would spend all day searching through the internet and finding all these different all this information. And the thing that Janie picked up on was that I like being like the detective and find, you know, like
true,
yeah,
that's true.
because it was like early in the days, it was like, okay, we're trying to get like, you know, people to contact, fill out this, get our records all filled in. So it kind of started, Janie noticed, when I was filling up our records with more up-to-date info without being asked to do it because I was just good at finding that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I
then
like to do it.
You understood the analytical side of how we needed to break down the bid and how we were, I'm up close and personal, how we break out the bid and what we need to do. So like the request for the proposal, that's the first one, right? The invitation to bid. Then they do the pre-bid conferences.
Yeah, which is kind of
interesting.
They're kind of optional. They don't always do pre-bid conferences. It'll sort of depend on the size. Like,
but it's a good point to like ask the questions and understand what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Ranjay says, I like electric.
I like electric. Me too, dude.
Me too. I mean, without it, I don't know where I'd be. I love my electrical. Now, so I'll say I used to live in Hawaii, and there was a point in which like there wasn't electrical in some of the buildings, so it was very old school. Or not old school. I guess that's not the right word these days.
I mean, you could say it is old school. About as old school as it can get if you don't have electricity.
Very tribal. I am man. So when they wouldn't have that, and I came here, and everything was like light switch, light switch, light switch, light switch.
It felt like amazing.
It did. I was like, I could read a book without a candlelight. I felt so.
Like, have you heard about?
I don't want to say traditional.
It felt like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, such a relief. Have you been hearing about how like Olympic athletes? I feel so bad like for the American ones that go over there because AC is not something that is a given.
No.
And especially coming from Arizona where it's like without AC, I would die very quickly.
I didn't have air conditioning in Hawaii.
In Hawaii,
they really don't. I mean, I guess they do. It's pretty optional, but it's 75 year round, so you don't need it.
So you don't really
but when
need
I came here, it was winter, so I was like, oh, it's not hot like everybody said. And I got to a point where it was just cold. It was December, so it was really cold, and I hadn't been here in a very long time. So I was like, oh, okay, it's gonna be freezing. I don't want to live here. And then the summer came, and I was like, oh god, help me. I cut my hair. Oh, so hot. Arizona's hot. If you don't like hot, don't come to Arizona.
Are you guys engineers? No, we're not engineers. No. We work in the industry though as like account managers for the facilitation of the goods and stuff. So we're talking about gov contracts today. Like I'm not an engineer that works with the UPS directly, but we have engineers.
We're working with the end user. We're communicating with
the
them
end user, exactly.
And facilitating what they need through our resources and through our buying power and through just over 30 years of experience from the engineers that we do have on staff and the subcontractors that we utilize. And then we work with the OEMs directly so that way we can really give the customer exactly what they need without having to hire so many vendors. We consolidate that vendor pool for them.
And it makes sense to have guys like this because as great as the being able to speak directly to the engineer for every little problem you might have for your UPS is, they're very busy people.
Yeah, they don't want to answer
so
10,000
smart.
questions.
And that's kind of like where we come in, where it's like we can figure out what the question is. We have like that surface level knowledge of being able to communicate that to them directly, and then be able to get that answer and find the best way to proceed.
Yeah, we know what they need before they ask for it. And that's the appreciation and partnership levels that we provide. So we're not all, I mean, there are people that are account managers here that are unbelievably technically savvy and have been through more of an engineering style schooling and certifications.
Want to get to that point, honestly. Like
a Steve.
Like a Steve?
He's so technical. It's amazing. If you ever need that, I mean, he's the guy.
Yeah, but when you ask us a question, we're going to go ask Steve. We're going to go ask
We're not afraid to say, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a big part of the role, is because you have to understand that you're not going to know everything.
No,
because nobody could possibly know everything, and that's why you have like multiple sources. We have a bunch of different engineers around to be able to clarify things when we don't know something.
Absolutely, and there's specific customizable needs too that any of the consumers are going to need. Like there's hospitals, or there's office buildings, or data centers, as we talked about last week. Check it out, and they the way that we can communicate with all of them and provide them a customized need, whether it be bringing electrical up to spec, we can't necessarily do that, but the persons and parties that we partner with can do that. Right. And then when it comes to the uninterruptible power supplies, the batteries, the capacitors, the generators, those types of needs, that's when Gruber comes in and we're like, okay, this is our wheelhouse. Sorry. Young guy. This is the wheelhouse that we're in. So we're able to then utilize our resources here in-house and ourselves and our own knowledge and the industry knowledge. And what we don't know, Pete Gruber does.
Yeah, right.
And it's lovely to have an owner that you can just walk over to his office and have a conversation with. I don't know many companies like that.
I've worked for a lot of big companies before coming here to Gruber, and this is by far the most approachable.
Absolutely. Talk about open door.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we go into like the preparation side of the bid.
Yes.
So what do you feel like it takes to? I mean, outside even preventative maintenance is, they're pretty easy to come up with because we've done so many of them. We pretty much have that down packed. But let's just say it's an odd number of batteries. It's something you're going through the bid and then you're like, ooh, maybe that actually is not supposed to be.
Like if the bid is done properly, they should have somebody to contact for questions specifically. And honestly, you'll get mixed responses when you do ask questions. You have to be really prepared, because that's the thing with gov bids specifically is these people do not want you to talk to them.
They're like, we provided all the information.
Yeah, they're like,
we
posted this document. We want you to send responses, and we want minimum words from you. They just don't want us to bother them for the most part. So if you ask a question and it turns out, and this is from my own experience, it turns out to be something that was totally listed in the bid, you will get they'll send you like a snarky response, and then you'll feel bad, and then it's like, oh man, feel like I probably lost that one because I didn't because I didn't follow the instructions well. But on the other hand, it is necessary sometimes. And I actually had this just the other day for one where it was actually another maintenance agreement that I was setting up, but they hadn't included how many preventative maintenance checks that they wanted per year for the unit.
Ooh,
so
that's actually key to
which
the
is
pricing.
Very key for the pricing, right? Like so I was, again, like I said, a little paranoid, because I'm like, okay, let me double check this document for the fifth time just to make sure that it's not listed somewhere in there, so I look like an idiot. And then I did end up emailing him, and the thing that has I've noticed is super key is you have to make sure that you follow whatever procedure it is that they put in there, or you're basically going to be eliminated off the bat by default.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even there, they had like, you need to email this guy at this address. You need to have your, your subject line needs to include this specific number, and it needs to be in this format, and you need to reference specific pages.
Have you ever submitted a proposal and then you're like, and you get the response back that, you haven't necessarily been accepted? And from that point where there's just lesser communication and you understand that you're not being accepted the bid, and you're like, this was perfect. I did this perfect.
All the time.
What's the problem?
all the time that it feels like that happened to me. Like I'll be like, okay, this feels like a really solid one, and I'm gonna send it in. And then the sad thing with government bids, because like I said, they don't necessarily want to talk to you, is they you know, they'll receive like 30 to 50 responses to the bid, and they're not gonna call up each one of them and be like, sorry, you didn't make it. They call the one guy that won. Yeah. Which has happened to me, and it feels great when it does, especially like the last time she was like, congratulations, you won the bid.
You won $5 million.
Like, yay, labor. But oh man, what was I just going on about?
You were going on about how it like really sucks to not be the one they call.
Yes, because like you just get dead air. Like you don't hear anything back from them. If you're lucky, they'll sometimes include an inactive date. I don't know if you've seen that before, but it essentially means like, hey, if you didn't hear from us after this point, give up. Like you're
give up.
Yeah, that's what that means. Is it just like stop hoping? Like we've already awarded it out, or we've decided we need to rebid this, so you know, stop watching.
Have you ever been a part of the pre-bid conferences and like seen the buddy shoulder rubbings?
I haven't yet, but I really want to.
Oh, have you ever been to any conferences, like sales conferences at all in general?
I have.
And then you watch all that shoulder
I've
rubbing
seen that a ton.
at the bar. It's usually at the bar.
It's usually at the bar.
Yeah. Some of the best deals are made at the bar, but I disagree with that because I don't drink.
Neither do I, actually.
Not fair anymore. So, darn it. I got to become an alcoholic to win the bid. I'm just kidding. So I'll push forward to like the preparation side of the bid. So when we're preparing for the bid and we're reading over the information, and at times we're eye rolling, we're trying to understand, is it a good future decision? I will let them know that.
Okay.
Thank you. Power. I don't have a. Oh my God.
We'll check that out. I love a good solid one.
Yeah.
That's just.
You know, I know exactly who that is on there. I'm gonna go past that one. No, I'm just kidding. So when we're doing the bid proposals, we're reading everything, we're understanding everything, we haven't been chosen. What do you feel like is the next step for that? Do you continue to look? I mean, let's just say we haven't won ever. We've never won that bid.
Like, honestly,
are we looking at what we're doing wrong? Are we asking questions?
That's
I mean, because I feel like I
man.
do, but
like I'll want to you know, email them and be like, hey, why didn't you go with us this time?
Right. What's the apples to apples here? What are you looking for?
It's super hard to say, because like I said, if you lose, they generally don't want to talk to you at all. Right. So it's hard to say exactly. What it always seems to me, and this is the vibe that I've always gotten, is that because especially with our maintenance agreements, they include like full parts coverage. And like, you know, 4-hour to 8-hour response times and stuff like that. So a lot of the time they'll put in the bid that the what they're looking for is the lowest one that they could get. So they probably got the crappier service from some other company that didn't include things like part coverage and like repair service, because like if something goes wrong with your unit while it's under one of our maintenance agreements, if it's a part that like your fans, you know, need to be replaced or something like that,
the Gruber
it's covered under it. Yeah, we got it. Like we'll send somebody out there to get it fixed like right away. But a lot of the times what I feel like, and it's hard because I can't confirm this, is they probably said yes to something that on paper was cheaper, and they were like, oh, this looks nice on the budget, because most of the time. But
then when the emergency arises, they're like, oh.
Yeah, now all of a sudden they're paying way more money.
Yeah.
Because now they're having to pay these guys to come and do that service, you know.
And I've heard some of them, like when I do call and ask them questions about it, I've heard some of the bid processors talk about how there's people, they just won't even look at their bids anymore, like the companies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because they're like, yeah, it's an open bid, but we know that company.
We know that company.
We know
worked
them.
with them
It's
before.
not necessarily blacklisted out in public, but blacklisted in office.
In spirit.
In spirit. Santa Maria. So when it comes to like the contract negotiations, the contract signing, you've been a part of more of those, I feel like, with Rita and you than I have. So kind of explain that just a little bit, but explain to me the parts that nobody wants to know, or nobody wants us to know.
Nobody wants us to know. That's kind of a hard one.
Because it's technically, they're calling it a negotiation, but there's really no negotiation.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
That's where the convoluted side of it comes.
That really is kind of what it comes down to a lot of the time, because like and it's always in the little verbiage. We touched on it earlier, of the things that they'll say where it's obvious in the writing that they're already leaning towards who they want to go for.
Yeah.
And I still put in for those, you know, like you know, because you never know.
Spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah, and it al dente, and they, you know, like there's still the chance that they'll go for us, but I think what kind of a big problem that it comes down to, and it's so individual across, like, because like I said, each city, each county, they have their own teams that do all
their
of
own
this
processes too.
Yeah, and part of it, I think it depends on how involved the person that actually needs the service is involved with that, because a lot gets lost in the bureaucracy. Like I think a lot of the times, if you ask the actual people who were working in the building that the UPS is located and actually have to worry about it, they probably want the better service where they have the parts coverage.
They would prefer. The facility managers are like, oh God, this guy.
Yeah, but the person who makes the decisions is the pencil pusher who is trying to balance the budget, which, like, power to the pencil pusher.
Totally understand it.
I get it. It's their job. But what gets lost in, I think, in that in between,
this is the taxpayers' dollars.
Yeah,
and you're wasting
and you're kind of
with
wasting
the wrong
it
services
because maybe they're busy people and they don't, you know, they feel like they have the time to look into it. But like, I honest to God think that if more of them looked closer into what they were buying when they would save more money overall. And just get a better product at the end.
Yeah, I think it should be like the bidding process, kind of like we have medical coding.
Yeah.
Right? Specific codes for, I mean, we have NICE codes, we have ISO codes, we have all of these codes, right? Why aren't those codes specific? Why can't we make it a blanket across the entire board and have this uniformed process?
I would love that. I would love it if there was just
trying to understand why
one
it's not
system.
like that.
Well, it's complicated because then it gets into like local and versus state versus federal law and how those so I get it, the bureaucracy of it all, the laws and the books and all of that, and like, well, maybe they're required to do this federally, but things are looser over here on a county scale.
I mean, I don't want my federal in my state either, and I don't want everyone holding hands and being, you know, the good old boy club, but that's ultimately what it always comes down to. I mean, if you've never serviced their equipment, they're probably not going to choose you. Because you're not a known name. It's very often that you find that. It's not always just the price, but it's also the name.
It's also just the name recognition. Yeah, when you're the smaller guy and you're next to like the bigger names, you know.
Like if Liebert went to bid and Gruber went to bid, Liebert's probably
it's just no contest. Yeah. Which is why, like, I primarily there are set aside, like, and you've seen this before too, I'm sure they'll have like small business set asides.
Yeah.
Where that's like they'll even put in a percentage. It's almost always 100% from what I've seen, but it can vary. Of like how much of this contract needs to go to registered small businesses, and we do count as that, which is great. So those are like my favorite ones to go after.
It's like a fiscal budget they put aside for minority owned and things like that.
But I still will see the stuff in there that's just like Eaton certified tech, you know, and it's like I don't know if those people. I think that when they're writing that, what they're wanting is like, this is how we'll get the best candidate to do it, right? Like, this is, you know, whoever
That's the thought process.
Yeah, the thought process is like the best way to get the quality guy is to get the guy that worked for the big company.
Yeah.
But they also don't want to shell out all that money, so they're trying to do it.
There's more. There's a non-compete, a non-disclosure, and they can't work for. So ultimately,
what they
it
don't
comes down
understand,
to these regulations.
Yeah, well, like a lot of it, and what I think that they don't understand is if they're a small business and they're putting in like, we require Eaton technicians, it's just going to end up going up for rebid because there's no money for us to make there. You know. True. Yeah. I mean, I just wish that wish in one hand and want in the other. Which one fills up faster? Wait, I don't think that's how that saying goes.
I can't
I'm not
cuss on
sure
this
how
show. I think it's like wanting one hand, poo in the other, and see which one fills up faster. That's the actual term for it. But I want to see them have a deeper consideration for even like small local businesses could benefit drastically, and they're outsourcing it to out of state. Not that I wouldn't want to see Gruber in every single state and everything that we do. That would be fantastic.
That'd be awesome. And we can service things all the way across the country, not just here in Arizona.
But I also appreciate supporting like the local side of things.
Guys, yeah.
So we're a local company to Arizona. So we would be very, very easily intrigued by the buildings and the facilities and having relationships with us as a local company who can then do emergency responses and have that. But then there's out of state, and there we have some technicians out of state, and then when we subcontract out of state, we build relationships, and Gruber's built these relationships again over the last like 30 years.
30 years, yeah.
Highlander is back. Welcome back, Highlander.
Can only be one.
Can only be one. So in many cases, there is like the public opening of the bid where you're submitting the bid, and then there's like a read aloud of that bid.
Yeah, and like I've always wanted to attend one in person because I think that sounds fun, but I've never had the opportunity.
It's not what you think it is.
Dang.
So when you get there, you're, like I said, you're watching everybody rub elbows. I mean, you've got the guys that are sitting at the table listening like, oh, okay, whatever, get this over with. And then we come up with our questions. There's always an agenda. Obviously, there's an agenda for every one of those persons coming in there. They're either trying to build a relationship, get a one-up on the competition. I mean, that's what it's about. If you've ever been to a sales conference or a conference in general, everybody's there with their own little agenda and their own mission, and that mission is typically to be the one that's chosen for the bid. So you find out as much as you can, you get as much technical information that you can. You want to ensure that, you know, all the considerations and every I is dotted and every T is crossed, because one little mess up can really lead to either you not being considered or, you know, it costs the company down the line. And you don't want to do that. So the evaluation of the bid and then the award of the contract, like, again, I'm going to say, I feel very strongly about this topic being that if you are a government entity or you are a state entity or you have a bid out there and you're watching this, be more considerate. Be more considerate to the people that are bidding, and know you're having somebody else draw up that bid, then read over it. Like, understand the proprietariness of that bid that you're placing out. Understand your bid, so when I call you and ask you questions, I don't feel smarter than you. I don't like that.
It
makes me scared.
See it pretty, obviously, I'm not going to call out any specific organization. No. If you're a weirdo like me who browses sam.gov on a daily basis, you may also already know this organization I'm going to talk about. But there's some that will have to rebid. And that means that, like, they posted their bid online, and then by the end of the due date, even after having to extend it and stuff like that, they didn't come to a decision on who they're going to buy for it.
No.
I've seen this agency
all that work for them to
go through all that work for nothing to get done. I think that recently, again, I won't name the agency, but it's being posted for like the third time for this one unit to be replaced. And I'm like, I don't even want to stick my head in there.
No.
Like,
those are those ones that you're like, I'm not even going to continue to waste my money, efforts, or time.
Because it's like I go in there and there's like 3 or 4 amendments, and it's just like, how prepared were you guys to start bidding?
They're basically just trying to get us to do their job for them.
Yeah, they want us to do the work of
our
it.
quotes.
Exactly.
We're giving them the quotes, and then they're getting more and more information from us.
They don't know what they actually need. They just have like a grievance disguised as like a bid, and then they're wanting
do that.
Yeah,
they like go out to quote. They
want us to figure
20
it out.
or 30 different people for a quote, and then they compile the data that they got from these quotes, and then make it look like, oh, well, you're off by here, you're off here, you're off there, and it's like it just doesn't make any sense.
But the point of that is like,
that was today's topic.
It's just when I see that, we
need to wrap it up.
Oh, we do.
Yeah,
geez. Okay, I didn't know that. Wait, we got to wrap it up. Can I plug myself really quick, like shamelessly? Hey, if you need UPS batteries, email me. Feed me. Thank you. Help feed me and my cats. No. You can call me. My extension's so easy. Call the office line. My extension is 369. It has the funny number in it, so it's easy to remember.
And that's 602-863-2655 extension
369. And if you want to email, yeah, it's got the funny number, so it's easy to remember. And my email address is ald@gruber.com. Gruber's on your screen right now, so I won't tell you how to spell that.
Gruber.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Have a great day, guys.
Hopefully you've enjoyed bid
Hope you enjoyed
inspects.
it.
Oh, and
I was
calling
dry.
out, AI had a lovely picture for us in the background, and this is what it generated.
Generated this guy for
Looks
us, talking
super
about
cool.
bids and specs. Gotta love all the lovely doctor handwriting on it.
Well, happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back
awesome
to Gruber
weekend.
Power Hours. See you next week.